of the Epstein's Fury operation. Last night's events, as the situation monitors obviously on Sunday night pay close attention to what Trump is saying in order to manipulate the markets, was exceptional. It was hilarious. Donald Trump did the exact same thing that he has done, where on the one hand he was like, Hormuz is open, a lie, took ownership over Pakistan's fleet pushing through and their tankers going through the Strait of Hormuz. He said, they're doing this for us. Traders are gloating that Iran's current speaker called Trump's market pumping to a T. It worked. Galibaf said, heads up, pre-market so-called news or truth is often just a setup for profit taking. Basically, it's a reverse indicator. Do the opposite. If they pump it, short it. If they dump it, go long. See something tomorrow, you know the drill. Right after the Kwanatola came out with this take, even though he's not an Ayatollah, okay? That's precisely what took place. Traders are now gloating that Iran's current speaker called Trump's market pumping to a T. Amazing. Markets, if they pump it, short it. Iranian parliament speaker calls the move as markets drop after open. Iran's parliamentary speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf wrote hours before the open that pre-market news or truth, a reference to Trump's Truth Social post, is often just a setup for profit taking, basically a reverse indicator, adding, they pump it, short it. Markets initially rose after Trump's early post threatening Iran's energy sector, but the S&P 500 slid more than 70 points from its opening highs by midday, aligning with Ghalibaf's call. Trump later told the New York Post the U.S. will soon know whether Ghalibaf is someone Washington can work with. We're going to find out. I'll let you know about that in a week. Trump's jawbone is broken, says Rory Johnston. Trump literally claimed 20 large oil tankers to transit Strait of Hormuz under U.S. escorts starting tomorrow morning. Yeah, the 20 tankers were Pakistani tankers, not American flag tankers. Iran keeps cutting deals with other countries, non-aligned countries, countries that are, they're doing bilateral commitments with countries in the region. And Donald Trump keeps leading into it like Iran is doing it for him and him personally. It is hilarious. They're not, but it's obvious why Trump would say this. Iran already approved this deal with Pakistan yesterday as a part of their move towards working with non-hostile countries in Hormuz. They're still going to have to take the Iraq route like everyone else. There won't be any American ships there. Trump literally claimed that it was American naval assets that would be accompanying the ships. It's bullshit. They are not U.S. escorts at all. They are Iranian escorts. Then Trump threatened to blow up all of Iran's power plants, oil wells, Karg Island, and desalination plants if the Strait of Hormuz isn't opened immediately. It's unbelievable. Finally, traders are saying, okay, well, we know you're lying. Update. Iran's reverse indicator trading advice continues to play out in real time. At 4:12 p.m. Eastern on Sunday, Iran Speaker of the Parliament said pre-market news is a reverse indicator. By 10 p.m. Eastern last night, S&P 500 futures had fallen nearly 1% on mounting war concerns. By 12 a.m. Eastern, 2 hours later, S&P 500 futures had reversed all losses and turned green. Then at 7:25 a.m. Eastern today, President Trump posted that great progress being made on peace talks, sending the S&P 500 plus 100 points off its low. Now, 3 p.m. Eastern, just 7 hours later, the S&P 500 has turned red and is down 100 points from its high, once again reversing price action. That's nearly a $2 trillion swing in S&P 500 market cap in less than 24 hours. Never truly a dull moment in this market. Trump shares a 1987 clip in which he discusses the need to take control over Iranian oil.
Because I'm running for the presidency, I'm here because I'm personally tired of seeing this great country of ours being ripped off.
But as far as Trump is concerned, our allies are only part of the problem. The real culprit is Iran.
Why couldn't we go in and take over some of their oil, which is along the sea?
How would you do that? Would you send in the Marines? Would you take a chance in a war?
Let them have Iran. You take their oil. That's what
How?
How?
I mean, do we want a war? What do we mean we take their oil?
You go in. You're
How
have
do
a
we
war,
go
Barbara.
in?
You're going to have a war by being weak.
Okay, how do we go in? What do we do?
Excuse me.
Yeah?
You're going to have a war, and it's going to start in the Middle East.
What if the Soviet Union said, you do this to Iran, we're going to come in?
I don't believe they'd do it. The next time Iran attacks this country, go in and grab one of their big oil installations, and I mean grab it and keep it. And get back your losses, because this country has lost plenty because of Iran.
Well, there you have it, dude. Rape his president. Thinks he can rape everybody, Yeah, grab him by the oil, grab him by the pussy, same mentality. And he's molesting the money simultaneously, so I guess that's like another benefit for him. He loves money molestation. Oh my Lord, he loves that shit. Yeah, don't siege Leningrad, just take it. Okay, well, what happens when you can't? Also, last night, Financial Times had an interview with everyone's favorite president, President Donald Trump, where he told the Financial Times a couple incredible quotes. One, he wants to seize Iran's oil. To be honest with you, my favorite thing is to take the oil in Iran. Specifically considering taking Karg Island, Iran's main oil export hub. Compares it to Venezuela, saying the U.S. could control oil there indefinitely. Trump claims Iran has no real defense there. I don't think they have any defense. We could take it very easily. Acknowledges it would require occupation. It would also mean we had to be there for a while. Trump claims scale of bombing. We've bombed 13,000 targets. We've got about 3,000 targets left. Claims regime change has effectively already happened. Describes a new leadership as a totally different group of people. Very professional. I genuinely think we're not taking Karg Island, by the way. The more he says Karg Island by name, the more I believe that we're not taking Karg Island. Rubio's announcement today was insane. Okay. On Good Morning America, Secretary Rubio says, here are the clear objectives of the operation. You should write them down. Let's take a look.
Okay, and that's what this is. It's about very specific objectives. The president laid them out on the first night of the operation. I'll repeat them to you now because I hear a lot of talk about we don't know what the clear objectives are. Here they are. You should write them down. Number one, the destruction of their Air Force. Number two, the destruction of their Navy. Number three, the severe diminishing of their missile launching capability. And number four, the destruction of their factories so they can't make more missiles and more drones to threaten us in the future. All of this so that they can never hide behind it to acquire a nuclear weapon. That was our objective from the beginning. That remains our objective now. We are on pace and, in fact, ahead of schedule on some of those things. And we are going to achieve those things in a number of weeks, not in a number of months.
Great. What happened? I thought we were liberating the Iranian people. Oh, well, I guess we totally dropped that one. Okay. Wait, I thought it was about nuclear capability. The Iranian people rising up and opening the Strait of Hormuz. The more this admin clarifies objectives, the less clear this insane war becomes. It turns out, you know what the real secret is? It's none of those things. It's none of those things at all. It's just we leaned into Israeli intelligence, Israeli assessments, and they played Donald Trump like a fiddle, where they just straight up were like, you'll go in, we'll do regime change, it'll be just like Venezuela, in and out, 4 days of bombing max. That's obviously not what's happened because we're 30 days in. We're 30 days in with no end in sight, and things are getting worse and worse. They've been able to like at least manipulate the markets a little bit, right, to not show exactly how devastating this has been for the energy markets. Israel's goals were always entirely different than the administration's goals. Israel's goals were always about complete destabilization, okay? Complete destabilization, complete destruction of Iran and Iranian existence in its entirety. They don't give a about regime change, obviously. And meanwhile, this has been such a devastating sequence of defeats for America and Israel that Iran has a stronger grip over the Strait of Hormuz now than ever before. They not only effectively shut down the Strait of Hormuz, but they also control all the oil tankers that go through, and they are forcing the non-hostile countries to pay a toll in Chinese yuan. Iran going in for the long haul and imposing sovereignty in the Strait of Hormuz. Yeah, they are also passing a bill now. If this becomes law inside of Iran, they will impose a toll system in rials, ban passage of U.S. and Israeli vessels through the strait, assert Iran's sovereignty over the strategic waterway, ban any country that imposes unilateral sanctions against Iran. Oman is slated to help shape the legal framework, Faris said. Okay, and you need to understand something. This is de-dollarization, and it's already happened. It accelerated after Russia invaded Ukraine because America's reaction to Russia invading Ukraine was to basically weaponize the SWIFT system, forcing Russia, a major oil provider, to move away from the petrodollar. Because Russia was like, okay, well, if you're going to sanction every dollar that we make off of our petroleum sales, our oil and gas sales, then we're not going to use that anymore. And ever since then, if you look at the actual data, the trade in general, like global trade, since then has actually fallen off of a cliff. We did that, okay? We did that. We forced the hand of all of our foreign adversaries by, one, sanctioning every country that is in the periphery, and on top of that, offering tight controls over whatever they can trade and can't trade. And the U.S. dollar share of global foreign currency reserves have fallen to its lowest level in this century. In 2000, at its highest peak, was at like around, 65%, 60% or so. Now it's at 40%. See, also, Europe is getting rid of Visa and MasterCard as a result of seeing the U.S. shut off access to other states. Europe is breaking up with Visa and MasterCard, and it's a $24 trillion problem. This is huge as well, because Visa and MasterCard are, at the end of the day, American companies. And because they're American companies, one of the things that Visa and MasterCard has been able to do effectively, and this is an unbelievable thing, Visa and MasterCard, just like PayPal and Venmo, if you recall, I've described this to you before, if you're a European national, if you're like a person in Switzerland and you send a Venmo to your friend in Italy and you put the word Cuba in it, your account gets shut down. That's insane, right? Neither of these countries have a negative relationship with the state of Cuba at all. And yet, because these are American companies, they can do that, right? This is perhaps best demonstrated with Yanis Varoufakis in techno-feudalism. America basically has exported all of their tech products to the rest of the world and therefore have tremendous control over what people do in their own countries. This is a way to deny them sovereignty, right? Another incredible problem for Europe in its efforts to regain sovereignty, of course, is on Visa and MasterCard. One of the things that Visa and MasterCard did in coordination with the American State Department, in coordination with the American government and the Treasury, was that they applied tremendous sanctions to ICC prosecutors and ICC judges, okay? This was unbelievable. The French International Criminal Court judge, Nicolas Guillot, was sanctioned by President Trump in August because of the court's warrant for Netanyahu, says he has been cut off from basic financial and digital services. I discovered that almost all payment methods in France today are American, Guillot said. The only cards we have in France are Visa and MasterCard. He can no longer use Amazon, Airbnb, Booking, or Expedia, and some UPS deliveries to his home have also been blocked. French officials say efforts to lift the sanctions have seen no U.S. response. If judges are afraid to judge, then we no longer have democracy, Guillot told France televisions. When America targets you because they want to defend Israel, they can literally destroy the International Criminal Court. You can't participate in normal civilized society. It's unbelievable. It is important. This kind of pressure is very important. Why is it very important? Because if Europe says no more Visa, no more MasterCard, okay, that's a $1 trillion market for Visa and MasterCard. Visa and MasterCard now have two options. Either they abide by the sovereignty of the countries and their markets, okay, that they choose to be in, or they lose $24 trillion in revenue, okay, or $24 trillion worth of revenue that they can get transaction fees off of. Getting back to situation monitoring, after Donald Trump promoted this Fox News special, if you want to understand like where he's going from here on out, Mark Levin is making the case for him.
Troops on the ground. He said no troops on the ground. I don't remember that in any campaign speech either. But why would we need troops on the ground? Well, there's a lot of reasons, and we wouldn't need 300,000 of them. It's this uranium, too. We've got to get the uranium. If it cannot be destroyed, if it cannot be altered, we got to get it. For the reason I just said. You can make dirty bombs, and over time you can still make sophisticated missiles. So you need to get to the uranium. That's why I'm reading in the paper, we're talking about the 82nd Airborne, we're talking about these various special forces and the various military services and so forth. He's not talking about sending regular army and infantry in by the hundreds of thousands. The men he's talking about, the units he's talking about, they are specialized. And you know what else? I remember from my days in the Reagan administration. Many of them are trained for a moment like this to try and secure enriched uranium.
Yeah, they're not, okay? This is an unbelievably complex, if not outright impossible mission to conduct, okay? Troops flying over contested Iranian airspace to get to Isfahan is already impossible to begin with. But then also on top of that, you're talking about transporting a ton of enriched uranium. How are you going to do that? How are you going to take packaged 1,000 pounds of uranium, even if it's like not even a certainty that the enriched uranium is in the Isfahan facility, because you don't even have the intelligence. Bomb it? 1,000 pounds of enriched uranium? This motherfucker talking about dirty bombs. So you're saying you're just gonna explode underground 1,000 pounds of enriched uranium and basically deploy multiple nukes worth of radiation, 19 nukes worth of enriched uranium exploding on Iranian soil. Incredible stuff. That is a very sophisticated operation that is virtually impossible to conduct, even if America had a runway, established bases that were free of Iranian rocket fire, okay? Like a launching pad. To do that with no air superiority whatsoever, as you are signaling that you're going to do that a week ahead of time, it's unbelievably stupid. It's not going to happen. I just don't even think it's going to happen. I don't even think they can find the uranium. I know. How are they going to find the tunnel systems? What are they going to do? Dig it out from the rubble? Like, there's no guarantee that this facility already still contains the enriched uranium. This is from the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists. Analysis: Iran likely transferred highly enriched uranium to Isfahan before the June strikes. Satellite imagery shows that Iran could have transferred to Isfahan up to 540 kilograms, possibly all of its highly enriched uranium inventory before the June strikes last year. 10 days of enriched uranium enrichment to weapons grade, long enough. There's no guarantee that it's there. And on top of that, it's virtually an impossible mission. And on top of that, once again, highly, highly difficult. It's not just like Navy SEALs that you can send on this operation. It's a trap. They're going to die there. But also, you have to have like specialists along for the journey. A bunch of Navy SEALs have no idea how to handle enriched uranium. A former CENTCOM commander talks about this. What boots on the ground in Iran could entail, according to a former CENTCOM commander. None of this makes sense. Yeah, once you're dropped there, you're on a timeline. You're setting yourself up for a ambush. In the Mark Levin interview, Trump urged all his followers to watch, makes the case for troops on the ground in Iran. We have to get what Donald Trump correctly calls the nuclear dust.
Of the leadership, including bin Laden's son, escaped from Afghanistan to Iran, were given sanctuary by the Iranian regime, and they've been using it as a hub for terror around the world. And Al-Qaeda and Iran have teamed up for a series of terrorist attacks against us. People don't realize this, but we remember the bombings of the embassies in Kenya and Tanzania, which should have been our warning that 9/11 was coming. That was planned, and the terrorists were trained by Iran for doing that because Al-Qaeda didn't know how to bring down buildings, so they turned to Iran in order to get the training to do that. So the idea that Iran, which is Shia, and Al-Qaeda, which is Sunni, would cooperate is not beyond measure. In fact, I mean, you know, the Hamas is Sunni also. Iran.
Bro, comparing Al-Qaeda to Hamas is so funny. I'm sorry. Al-Qaeda, Daesh, and all these other, like, you know, Salafist or Wahhabist groups are antagonistic to Iran. They have, in some ways, been created to fight back against Iranian influence in the region, and they are much more aligned with Western goals by way of Saudi Arabia than with Iranian goals in the region, okay? And no, it's not in Iran, it's Pakistan. That's where they came from. That's precisely where bin Laden was too when we popped his ass. Next to like the Annapolis of Pakistan. That's where he was sheltering. What the is this guy talking about?
Works with Sunni terrorists around the world. And if we don't get that enriched uranium, and they want to get back at us for what we've done, the easiest way to do it would be to give it to Al-Qaeda and let them use it for a dirty bomb. So we have got to get what Donald Trump correctly calls the nuclear dust before this operation is done.
I mean, this is like not even a good argument, I'll be honest. It's just not a very good or a very convincing argument. Like, they're not even doing the don't let the smoking gun turn into a mushroom cloud. Prior admins that were also major war criminals, like specifically I'm thinking of the George W. Bush neocons, were at least more competent than this administration. So this actually does present a unique opportunity for anti-war people like ourselves to make a much more convincing argument that these guys don't know what the going on. Okay, I think it was a lot more difficult back in the day with the competent neocons in charge that were doing full spectrum coverage on why we have to, you know, invade Iraq, why we have to invade Afghanistan. They did a much better job of convincing the population, especially because it was like tied off to the 9/11 anxieties and 9/11 fears that had been successfully universalized for Americans that were living in like bump towns, you know. The competent neocons, no, I mean, they were. What's really funny about this kind of stuff, I'm seeing this, like, where they go, oh, dude, let's not do nation building. Let's not do regime change. The idea that the neocons had any sort of real investment in, like, liberalizing Iraq is idiotic. That was marketing, you idiot. That was marketing. They didn't actually care about bringing democracy to Iraq, you moron. That's why it's so funny when they're like, no, we should just do not woke stuff because like nation building is woke. Yeah, really. Donald Rumsfeld, Mr. Woke. They're so stupid that they, I guess, genuinely believe that the neocons had any investment whatsoever in nation building and democratizing Iraq. No, they didn't, you idiot. That was just marketing. It turns out the reason for that marketing and why that marketing existed was so that they could sell this idea to dumb liberal Americans who ate that bait completely. Now that Trump is not even doing that, where he's doing away with all that because they consider it to be woke, and this is the anti-woke warrior ethos, many Americans are not even being convinced on why this is appropriate and why we should do it. It's fantastic.